My wonderful, beautiful, amazing humans, to my beautiful followers and fledglings, to all humans out in this world. I'm Gabriella from Gabriella's Vampire Tarot, and for today we're going to be talking about the full moon in Pisces on September 7th, 2025. So, anyway, it's a very important time because Pisces is the opposite of Virgo, just like with any of the signs of stuff. When there's a new moon on one side, the full moon is in the opposite sign and stuff like that as well. But anyway, what do we know about Pisces? You guys are very creative and imaginative individuals. You guys have such very strong sense of, intuition. You're loving, you're caring, supportive, nurturing, just like the water element. It's very healing. It's very beautiful. A lot of humans, they take so much comfort, when they're pretty much just walking, near a lake or a water fountain or even a waterfall and stuff like that. Just water, it's just a very beautiful element, and of course, a lot of humans, will require water to be able to survive in this world, right? But anyway, so the Pisces full moon is a magical time with the potential for great healing and release. Well, Pisces represents the vastness of the universe and teaches us the interconnectedness of beings. Symbolized by the fish and ruled by Neptune, this sign inspires us to expand our dreams and feel our internal creations in other ways. So, it's an interesting, feeling, or even, let's say, a task or a little tiny assignment or exercise for that matter, is that it's like, when we think about the opposite sign of Virgo, Virgo is pretty much, needing to have structure and pretty much, actually, being able to, look between the lines and having a really good sense of, like this realistic idea and stuff like that. Well, Pisces, it's like, it's very good to also have a sense of like daydreams and stuff like that. Because, daydreams are tiny little idea children. They're like the Page of Cups in other ways. Because, that's where a lot of new beginnings, new ideas, new thoughts, new sensations, new creations, new developments, they all come and from a sense of your own ideas, your own perceptions. You're pretty much just kind of thinking, okay, it's like, if you look at this world, it's like, I mean, there's so much development, wherever you go, whether it's refurbishing, whether it's new ideas, beginnings and stuff like that. But the little tiny task, let's say, is since we're mostly still in the start of our year cycle in Virgo season, heading off towards 2026 in a few months, like, what would you actually be inspired to want to start daydreaming about? New love interest, courtships, or maybe creating something new? Because I know how highly intelligent a lot of Pisces are in this world. My goodness, you guys make great philosophers, scientists, professors, teachers, musicians, arts creators, what have you, and so forth. Amazing. I just think, a lot of Pisces in this world just have, so many great qualities. If you're even a Pisces, I wonder if you pretty much feel like any of those, themes or examples that I mentioned more or less also, correlate to your own, personal self and stuff like that in other ways. But yeah, if you're in the process, like sometimes, I think even my human familiar even told me how I think when he was like maybe in high school or one of those academic years, half the time I don't know how those things work, because back in my time is we were mostly educated by our own elders and in our own community and stuff like that. So when I hear about high school or college, I just think, oh, okay, I have no idea. Sure, I'll try to understand it and stuff like that. But he was talking about how he had to create like an essay or report and stuff like that about what he actually wanted to start achieving. I think it was like for some like literature class of some kind. And, he pretty much, also wrote down all of his ideas, his goals and ambitions, and what he was hoping to achieve. I mean, I don't think he ever really achieved any of those, to be honest. Maybe he tried something new or different, but it's always in the form, like with flowing water, is development, changing course, ideas, feelings, sensations, what have you, and stuff like that. So, but what do you hope to actually start daydreaming about? And this is actually just, it's, you don't even have to even, will be graded. This is just an open, thought and feeling on what you personally want to start achieving in this world. Do you hope to get into college? Do you hope to find true love? And do you hope to create something? Do you hope to develop, or do you hope to learn a new, like language, for example, or a new skill and stuff like that? Just any kind of daydreams are beautiful and also important to have, because the thing is, if it's a realistic daydream, to say, oh yeah, I want to do this and that, try it out. Nothing ventured is nothing gained. That's the main crux of many things is, it's like if you just don't try something, you're never going to know if it's actually going to work out. You could always try something for one, for one time or two times or what have you and stuff like that. And eventually you might think, you know what? I tried something and I just didn't care for it. So whatever, right? And that's actually, what the human and I were actually talking about, how a lot of these academic institutions, they pretty much, they will give you all of this work, he was telling me. He said, but a lot of the work, like all of his homework and stuff like that, is not like practice, like bringing it forth into the actual world, unless a lot of the things that you did actually gain from your academic life, that you were actually able to apply it in the realistic setting. But that's the deep and honest truth about a lot of these academic institutions, is they don't give you the actual work, that you can actually use in a lot of fields and stuff like that. And so I think, okay, it's like, I mean, a lot of the my education, that I've learned in the past pretty much does not resonate or even correlate to modern day human world and stuff like that. So you have no idea how I pretty much had to really acclimate myself to actually, get out of my coffin, because I was all still in my, mucky, gross, dress that I pretty much just slumbered in for like many years and stuff like that, before I realized, even my own personal wardrobe, was not fitting into modern times for that matter either. So, but yeah, it's actually really interesting, just to kind of think about any kind of daydream, that you hope to achieve, whether you want to be a designer, creator, if you ever want to have fledglings of your own. Those are good, beautiful idea children to also be looking at as well. But anything, whatever you can think of, this is actually a very good time to kind of go within and kind of just think about what you personally want to start heading towards in other ways. And you could always change course, you could always change ideas, you could always even just think, nope, I'm actually okay, in my current situation, 100%. Well, your prerogative in any way and stuff like that. But that's what the full moon in Pisces has for us all on so many levels and stuff like that. So, but anyway, I actually wanted to bring forth this very interesting announcement that I'm actually going to be creating and also daydreaming about as well, is I'm going to be hosting a virtual Halloween special, now like I did in the previous Halloween, but this time it's going to involve music. Yes, because, I don't know how I'm going to manage this, but, it's like maybe the human familiar might even end up helping me or supporting me. I think I'm going to try to get him to do something, because I'll just see. But anyway, because music is very healing. I know thousands of humans in this world, that have their little headphones on, their little earphones on and stuff like that. And I just think, I wonder what they're actually listening to and stuff like that. Because, music, brings you into a different world. You get different thoughts, feelings, senses. It's like... and it's very healing on so many levels. If you feel, unhappy, depressed, scared about something, just even listening to any song or piece or whatever it is out in this world, it can sometimes just suddenly just lift your spirits up into thinking, wow, this is actually pretty good, stuff like that. But anyway, I'm just going to give a tiny little taste of what we're going to be actually trying to manifest and start daydreaming about. If you guys have even heard of the piece Danse Macabre, we're going to actually do something very special along that side. But anyway, please feel free to stay tuned and stuff like that. But anyway, I wanted to kind of bring forth, even though we're just about, I think, we're actually closing in on the All Hallows Eve time. And of course, the times are getting darker for me, which makes me happier than the spring and summer times. I mean, unless... those, seasons benefited you guys entirely, 100% whatever you guys want and stuff like that. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to bring forth what I'm going to start, daydreaming and manifesting myself. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I love you guys incredibly. Please feel free to browse, my YouTube channel if you're ever interested in what do you call, attending or even, subscribing. But anyway, please feel free to stay tuned for the upcoming Halloween special. But anyway, thank you again. I love you guys incredibly, and best of luck on your own personal daydreams, your own, voyage, your own quest, what have you, and stuff like that. And thank you so much for joining me.